And for more on the unemployment report, we're joined by Joe Brusuelas. He's the chief economist with McGladrey. Joe, good to have you on the show.
Thank you.
All right, so Joe, looking at the job report, it looks good on the surface, unemployment 5.6%. But if we dig a little deeper, there are some red flags, some issues. We do have the fact that there was a drop in the number of people seeking work, the labor participation rate falling to 62.7%, the worst since 1977, and there were also 273,000 people joining the labor force, looking for jobs. So what's your take on that?
Well, we've got a very noisy December job report, first. Second, that's not the way you want to see the unemployment rate fall. Over the past several months, it's fallen because people have been coming into the workforce. December, it didn't work out that way. My sense is when we get your benchmark revisions, we're going to see these adjusted, and my guess is it's got to do with people actually entering the workforce.
All right. So one of the other issues is the fact that wage increase or lack thereof, average hourly earnings decreasing by 0.2%. Barely enough to keep up with the pace of inflation is the average hourly earnings, which rose just 1.7%.
Well, you know, if you look at the broader array of wage data, this really is an outlier. Now, this isn't good. We don't want to sugarcoat this because one of the persistent characteristics of the entire business cycle has been weak wage growth. But this seems a little off, especially considering wage and salaries in the U.S. Employment Cost Index are up 2.3% on a year-ago basis.
So what are you saying? You're saying that that data doesn't match your findings because you also did a study and you're telling us that there's been more of an increase in higher-paying jobs than in lower-paying jobs. And that seems to be at a discord with the majority of views that we're hearing where qualified people are saying, hey, they're not finding the right kind of jobs. There's the chart that you put together. Talk us through that, if you will.
Okay, well, I'm saying two things. One is that this report does not match other government data. Two, we often see discrepancy in job gains and wage data that doesn't get revised until usually the first quarter of the next year.
Right.
What I'm seeing in wage gains, and I break down private hiring into 87 different sectors, is that over the last 12 months, during 8 of them, we've seen a modest we've seen a modest increase in the gains of high-wage jobs as opposed to low-wage jobs. Now, if you look at the chart, you can tell it's not that big of a difference, but it does represent a turn in the business cycle and the labor market here in the U.S., and that's why we saw the single largest job gain in a given year in over 50 years.
Well, minimum wage is going to be increased in 20 states in 2015. What impact is that going to have? Well,
I think that statistically you don't see much of an impact, but there are going to be some interesting distributional costs. And I do worry that because this policy reform was not paired with an increase in the cost or other government subsidies, specifically child care and other subsidies, that we might see the unemployment rate, especially for young people, rise because of this.
Does the increase in minimum wage at some point help to create a wage increase for other jobs?
No, I would say that it's very limited to a very narrow range of individuals who primarily work in retail, fast food, and other jobs.
So it doesn't mean if the minimum wage is up to $10 an hour, people in higher paying jobs are going to get a push up in
no,
their sector?
I don't think that you're going to see much cost push inflation in this cycle.
Well, one of the other concerns in this job report is underemployment, people wanting full-time positions but only being able to get part-time work. And this has been a case that's been made for a very long time. Blame it on Obamacare because the majority of companies with over 50 employees now need to give full-time employees health care.
Okay, well, this has been another one of these problems in the business cycle. So if you look at involuntary part-time employment, that's people who want to work full-time jobs but can't get 40 hours a week or have seen their hours reduced. Now, it's dropped from 7.6 million a year ago to 6.7 million in December. But that's historically elevated, and that's a long-term policy problem. That's what we call a form of structural unemployment that the Federal Reserve can't solve through low rates. That's going to require concerted fiscal effort over a long period of time.
But does it put too much pressure on, does a law such as Obamacare put too much pressure on businesses from getting part-time workers full-time positions?
Well, here's the interesting thing. At the beginning of 2014, when the Affordable Health Care Act was implemented, we did see a tick up in involuntary part-time unemployment, but then it plateaued and went down further. So right now, there's no statistically significant data that links involuntary part-time unemployment to Obamacare.
Joe, very quickly here, you say smaller and middle-sized firms will continue to outpace hiring as opposed to bigger multinational corporations. Why?
Well, it's been the trend now for about a good
Which
period of time.
sectors?
Oh, specifically middle market. Oh, you're going to see service sectors, good big increase in, I think, in manufacturing, goods producing, and even construction this year.
All right. Well, we'll end it on that positive note. Thank you so much, Joe Brusuelas, Chief Economist with McGladrey. All right, up ahead.